Okay, clase, muy buenos días. Buenos días. Let's see, who's here? Cliff is here. Hola,
Hola.
Cliff. Hola. We've got some callers calling in. St. John's is here. Hola, St. John's. Hola, hola. We also have some folks joining us from other NPC sections. Bienvenidos. Hoy es martes, el 27 de octubre. Today is Tuesday, October 27th. We've had some severe weather warnings. Some campuses have been closed this morning. We missed our morning session because of the severe weather and the campus being closed, but looks like Silver Creek campus is open back up. White Mountain campus there in Sholo is open back up. Anyway, we're going to get on to our lecture for today with a reminder that first thing tomorrow, this lecture will be posted, or a link to a video of this lecture will be posted for those that perhaps had to miss this morning because of the severe weather warning and campus closures and all of that. All right? So anyway, never fear. If you've missed out on this lecture, a link will be posted first thing tomorrow so that you can get caught up. Because remember, clase, por favor, acuérdense, por favor. Remember, vamos a tomar el examen el día martes 3 de noviembre. El día martes 3 de noviembre. We're going to take our test on Tuesday, November 3rd, right? So this week and then Monday of next week we'll get through our remaining lecture and lab sessions, all in preparation for our Chapter 3 test on Tuesday, November 3rd. All right? So that being said, clase, por favor, let's go to the book, the textbook or the e-book, whichever you might have. Estamos en el libro en la página 102. Perdón, 102, no, 102. Estamos en la página 102. 102. We're going to be talking about the to-know verbs. We went over this a little bit last week, and I think it's probably come up a little bit in lab sessions since, right? But in Español, feel free to take yourselves off mute to answer this question. In Español, we have two verbs that mean to know. Do you remember which they are? The two of them? Anybody?
Saber.
Okay, we've got the verb saber, muy bien. And what's the other? Conocer, muy bien. Conocer. Now today we're going to talk a little bit about the differences, the distinctive differences between these two verbs. But essentially, to break it down in an easier way to remember the difference between the two verbs that mean to know, saber y conocer. Essentially, the verb saber means to know what, and essentially the verb conocer means to know what. We broke it down into a simpler idea. Anybody remember? St. John's, you guys might be on the hot spot today. We've got a few callers in, a few callers calling in. So don't be afraid to speak up. Take yourselves off mute. What do you remember the difference essentially, basically, between the two?
Saber is to know how.
Okay, so to know how to do something, how to, right? Information, would you say? Knowing information, how to do something. I would include the word facts, knowing facts, right? Facts about something. Okay, muy bien, muy bien. What about the verb conocer? Conocer means to know, but in what sense?
To be familiar with.
Familiar with what? Okay, you're right.
Someone or something.
Okay, muy bien, yeah. That's why I asked. It's important to be familiar, but with what? Specifically with people, to know people, right? Or be familiar with places and things, okay? And this is going to become apparent, if it hasn't already, with people especially, to know people, right? Knowing facts is a lot different than knowing a person, a living, breathing human person. So if that If that alone helps you distinguish, right, between saber y conocer, all right? So if, just to kind of remind us, let's remind ourselves how these verbs are conjugated. Let's first start with the verb saber, okay? If you remember saber, look at the board, take good notes. The verb saber, it's an ER verb, right? I'm going to put my ER verb endings up here. O, es, e, hemos, en, right? And if you remember, only the yo form is different. I'm going to write this in a different color. Only the yo form is irregular. We practiced this last week. Every other person is regular. So I'm even going to get rid of that O, okay? So let's first conjugate the verb saber and all of the other persons first. Let's do what's regular first. Let's drop the ER and plug in what's left. What does the verb saber sound like? Do you know? Do what? Take yourselves off mute and shout it out. We'll start with the tu form. Do what?
Sabes.
Sabes. Muy bien. Tú sabes. Keep going. Él, ella, usted.
Sabe.
Sabe. Muy bien. Keep going. Nosotros
Sabemos.
sabemos. Muy bien. Keep going. Ellos, ellas, ustedes
Sabe.
saben. Muy bien. Again, it's only in the yo form. Look at the board. It's only in the yo form that it's irregular. ¿Cómo se dice I know with the verb saber? Yo what? Remember? Yo what? It's super irregular. Does this remind you?
Sé.
Yeah, yo sé. Muy bien. Yo sé. Don't forget the written accent mark over that E. Yo sé. Yo sé. Okay? So there are our conjugations of the verb saber. Regular everywhere except in the yo form. We've got some sample sentences I want us to read. We've got some sample sentences. En el libro, en la página 102. En la página 102. We've got some sample sentences. All right? Listen to one another's accents. Pay attention to the bold-faced type. See and hear the conjugations of the verb ser. Again, callers, don't be afraid to take yourselves off mute. St. John's, we've got some folks there. Do you guys see where we are? En la página 102. We've got some sample sentences, the verb saber. The first one says, do you know that Juanes, I thought maybe that was a misprint. Juan, I'm used to that name, but that's the first time I've seen Juanes. Anyway, do you know that Juanes is from Medellin, Colombia? Who can see that? Who wants to read that? A volunteer, I'll leave it open. Anybody calling in? St. John's, any volunteers? Anybody? Don't make us wait too long. Who can read the Spanish translation of that sentence? Do you know that Juanes is from Medellin, Colombia? Somebody, anybody?
Just read it, yeah.
¿Saben ustedes que Juanes es de Medellín, Colombia?
Medellín, muy bien, ya. ¿Saben ustedes que Juanes es de Medellín, Colombia? Did you guys know that Juanes is from Medellin, Colombia? That's information. That's fact. Where is he from? He's from Medellin, Colombia. That's fact. The verb saber. ¿Saben ustedes? Right? You saw it. We read it. She said it. We heard it. Right? Look at the next one. Do you know that Carlos Vives sings vallenatos? Do you know that Carlos Vives sings vallenatos? Somebody read that one, por favor. Somebody, anybody. We've got some, oh, go ahead. Yeah.
¿Sabes que Carlos Vives canta vallenatos?
Vallenatos, muy bien. ¿Sabes que Carlos Vives canta vallenatos? Did you know that Carlos Vives sings vallenatos? Again, that's a fact. That's information. That's knowing something about somebody. In this case, knowing that Carlos Vives sings the vallenatos. Right? Yeah. Look at the next one. Do you know how to play tennis? Somebody read that. We've got some more people calling in that have joined us. Don't be afraid to take yourselves off mute and read these sentences. We're on page 102, 102. Do you know how to play tennis? Somebody read that, por favor.
Sabes jugar al tenis?
Muy bien. ¿Sabes jugar al tenis? ¿Sabes jugar al tenis? Do you know how to play tennis? How to. That's knowing how to do something, right? In this case, play tennis. No, but I know how to play golf. Somebody read that. Somebody read that, por favor. No, but I know how to play golf. Somebody, anybody. Somebody, read it out loud. You're all reading it in your heads. Read it out loud. Somebody, I don't care who. Somebody. We've got some more callers in. St. John's. Somebody in St. John's. Read it, por favor.
Pero sé jugar al golf.
Muy bien. No, no, pero sí sé, what is it? No, pero sé jugar al golf. I know how to play golf. Again, that's knowing how to do something. The last one. Do you know what? I like golf. I'm going to read it because you guys take so long. Ready? ¿Sabes qué? Me gusta el golf. Did you know? Huh? Look at the board. The verb saber. What have we been talking about? We've been reading sentences that explain knowing things, but specifically how to do things. Knowing information. Knowing facts. Okay? Very different feeling, very different flavor than the other to know verb conocer. Now let's remind ourselves how to conjugate the verb conocer. The verb conocer. Conocer. Again, look at the board. Take these notes. It's an ER verb. My ER verb endings. O, es, e, hemos, en. And everywhere else we're going to drop the ER and plug in what's left. Everywhere else except the yo form. The yo form is what's irregular. We talked about that last week, remember? The yo form is what is irregular, right? Everywhere else, however, we drop that ER and plug in what's left. So what does the verb conocer look and sound like everywhere else? Tú, what? Conoces?
¿Conoces?
Yeah, keep going.
Conoce.
Él conoce, muy bien.
Conocemos.
Conocemos.
Conocen.
Muy bien. Y conocen. Muy bien. We just do what we know to do. Drop the ER, plug in what's left. What does the yo form of the verb conocer, however, look like? Remember, it's irregular. Yo, what?
Conozco.
Muy bien. Yo conozco. We got this crazy Z showing up. Yo conozco. Don't be worried by the crazy Z showing up seemingly out of nowhere. Just memorize that's the irregularity of the verb conocer. Yo conozco. Now, let's look at some sample sentences using the verb conocer. I'm going to switch to this page for just a second. Whoops, this page for just a second. Pay attention now to how the verb conocer, as it talks about knowing people or knowing places or things, being familiar. Pay attention to the feeling, the context of the verb conocer. I'll put this back up to remind us of the conjugations, right? Sample sentences. Look, down there just below where we were. And then there's something I want to point out along the way. Do you want to meet my friend? Do you want to meet my friend, or do you want to know my friend? Somebody read that, por favor. Somebody read that out loud. Anybody, I don't care. We've got more callers calling in. Take yourselves off mute. Somebody, anybody, I don't care who.
¿Quieres conocer a mi amiga?
Muy bien, gracias. Muy buena pronunciación. ¿Quieres conocer a mi amiga? Do you want to meet my friend? Conocer, that's knowing somebody, knowing a person. And look what happened if it's a person that we're talking about. Look at this page. The verb conocer means to know or be familiar with a person, place, or thing. If it's a person, we have to add that personal a. That personal a. Read that sentence or look at that sentence she just read again. ¿Quieres conocer a? You see that a in there? ¿Quieres conocer a mi amiga? Do you want to know my friend? Do you want to meet my friend? Is my friend a person? Yes. I got to do something special. People are more important than things. I got to set that person apart by using that personal a, something special. Conocer a mi amiga, right? To meet my friend or to know my friend. Look at the next one. Do you know Bogotá? Meaning, are you familiar with the city of Bogota? Somebody read that. Somebody, anybody, quickly, out loud. Do you know Bogota?
Conoces Bogotá.
Muy bien. ¿Conoces Bogotá? ¿Conoces Bogotá? Bogotá is a city. Now, is a city a person? I'm asking. Is a city a person? I'm asking. Is a city a person?
No.
No. Cities aren't people. People are people. So look at the board. This personal a that I'm talking about with the verb conocer is only added when it's people that we know. Okay? If it's places or things or whatever else we might be familiar with, they aren't people. They don't need a personal a to set them apart. It's only people. Again, going back to the sentence that was read previously. ¿Quieres conocer a mi amiga? Do you want to know my friend? My friend is a person. The personal a mi amiga, right? The next sentence. ¿Conoces Bogotá? Do you know Bogotá? Are you familiar with Bogotá? No a necessary because Bogotá isn't a person that you might be familiar with. Rather, it's a place. That personal a is called a personal a. Look at the board. For a reason. It's only used with persons. Personal a. Look at the next sentence. No, but I know Cali. Somebody read that. No, but I know Cali.
No, pero conozco Cali.
Muy bien. No, pero conozco Cali. Cali, again, is another city in Colombia. No, pero conozco Cali. There's that crazy Z in the yo form. Yo conozco Cali. Again, Cali is a city. It's not a person. It's a place. We only need that personal a with persons, not with places or things. Look at the next sentence. Do you know vallenato music? Do you know vallenato music or that kind of music? Somebody read that out loud, por favor.
¿Conocen la música de vallenato?
Vallenato, muy bien. ¿Conocen ustedes la música de vallenato? Are you familiar with the vallenato music? Again, that's being familiar with the thing, in this case, the vallenato music, that type of music. Are you familiar with the verb conocer? ¿Conocen ustedes la música de vallenato? Look at the last one. Do you know Juanes music? Do you know Juanes music? Somebody read that, por favor. Out loud, somebody might. Go ahead.
¿Conocen la música de Juanes?
Muy bien. ¿Conocen? Is it conocen? O conoces, perdón, I misread that. ¿Conoces? ¿Tú conoces la música de Juanes? Are you familiar with Juanes music, right? The group or singer, whomever, right? Yeah. Again, the verb conocer, to be familiar with people, places, and things. And again at the bottom, just to reiterate, at the bottom of the page, if it's a person that we're talking about knowing, then we have to do something special to set that person apart, and that's give that person a personal a. Look at those sample sentences. Conozco a Carlos. I know Carlos. Carlos is a person. I got to give him a personal a. And it doesn't matter how many people we might be talking about. Look at the next sample sentence. Conozco a Carlos y a Juan. I know Carlos and Juan. Each of them are people. Each of them deserve their own personal a with the verb conocer. Okay? Now this next thing I want to talk about is very important, but before I do, clase por favor, ¿hay preguntas? Any questions so far? Preguntas? Okay, so again, just a reminder, we have two verbs that mean to know, saber y conocer. Saber means to know information, facts, how to do things, right? While the verb conocer means to know people. And we need that personal a. Maybe I'll just write that in parentheses. Don't forget that personal a if it's somebody that we know, okay? Otherwise, being familiar with places and things. Now, this next piece is very, very important. I want you to pay attention, take good notes. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, maybe, on the test. I'm not saying, I'm just saying, maybe there's a section on the test, right, that asks you to use either the verb saber or conocer and create a sentence. I give you some subjects. I give you things or people or places or information, whatever. I give you a topic, and I ask you to use the verb saber or conocer to create a sentence, okay? Now, I'm not saying, I'm just saying. You could very well use either or, provided you stick with the context of the verb. For example, If I give you Lima, Peru. I don't know if you guys knew this or not, but Lima, the city, I'm saying it like a gringo. Lima, la ciudad capital de Lima, es la ciudad capital de Perú, del país de Perú. Lima is the capital city of Peru, all right? So, if I asked you to create a sentence, using the verb saber or conocer, in this particular case, does it have to be one or the other, or could you create a sentence perhaps maybe using both? I'm asking. What do you think? I'm asking. Do you have to choose one or the other? Or perhaps could you create a sentence that would make sense with either verb? I'm asking. What do you guys think? Any ideas? Let me give you an example. What if I were to create a sentence, look at the board, that said, Lima, hold on. If I were to ask a question, ¿Tú sabes que Lima es la capital del Perú? Somebody translate that sentence. ¿Tú sabes que Lima es la capital del Perú? Translate the sentence. Translate the sentence.
Do you know that Lima is the capital of Peru?
Did you know that Lima is the capital of Peru? I'm using the verb saber. Did you know? That's a fact. Lima is the capital city of Peru. That's information. That's a fact. That's the verb saber. There's the conjugation right there. ¿Tú sabes que Lima es la capital del Perú? Huh? I'm using the verb saber. But what if I formulated a sentence like this? ¿Tú conoces la ciudad de Lima? What am I asking now? ¿Tú conoces la ciudad de Lima? What am I asking? ¿Tú conoces la ciudad de Lima, Perú?
Are you familiar with the city of Lima?
I am so glad you worded it that way. Thank you. Literally, do you know Lima, Peru? In the sense that, are you familiar with the city of Lima, right? Yeah. Okay, so again, there I'm using the verb conocer, right? So the point I'm trying to make is, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, on the test, maybe, if there's a section, right, where I give you some topics, I give you some subjects, and I say use the verb saber or conocer to create a sentence. Don't feel like it's got to be a guessing game. Now sometimes it's going to obviously be one or the other, right? So for example, if I ask you to create a sentence, well, I guess if depending how creative you want it to be, right? If I gave you a sentence and the topic was la tía Rosa. La tía Rosa, Aunt Rosa. Aunt Rosa. All right, she's a person. Probably what's going to come to mind would be a sentence like, maybe something like, Yo conozco a la tía Rosa. Translate this sentence. Yo conozco a la tía Rosa. Translate it. Translate it.
I know Aunt Rosa.
I know Aunt Rosa. You're using the verb conocer, which means to know a person. Never mind the personal a right there. All right, pretty easy. Tia Rosa, Aunt Rosa is a person. I can use the verb conocer, right? I guess depending how creative I wanted to get, I could also use the verb saber, something about Aunt Rosa that we may know or may not have known, a fact or some information about her. The point I'm trying to make is, clase por favor, I'm not saying, I'm just saying, maybe on the test, maybe the section on the test that says something about that. Don't overwhelm yourselves struggling trying to figure out if you need one or the other. Based on how creative you want to get, you can use the context of either or to create a sentence, right? What if I were to say something about, I don't know, whoops. What if I were to say, well here, la literatura de, who's a Who's a good author? Let's see. La literatura de Emerson. Ralph Waldo Emerson. Something about Emerson's literature. I could write a sentence that says something like, nosotros conocemos la literatura de Emerson. Nosotros conocemos la literatura de Emerson. Translate the sentence. What am I saying? Nosotros conocemos la literatura de Emerson. What am I saying? Translate it. Nosotros conocemos la literatura de Emerson. What's being said there?
We are familiar with the literature of Emerson.
And again, I'm glad you said it that way. We know Emerson's literature in the sense that we are familiar, right? We've read it enough that we recognize Emerson's style. We know titles of his works, his poetry, his prose, right? We know Emerson's literature in the sense that we're familiar with it. Okay? Now wait a second. Wait a second. What about that personal ah? What about that personal ah? Do I need to have a personal ah inserted in there? I'm asking. I'm asking.
No.
Okay, so it wasn't, why not? Why don't I need a personal ah in there? You're right, why not?
Because we're not talking about a person.
Yeah, we're not talking about a person. We're talking about a person's literature, but we're not talking about a person, right? We're not talking about a person. Now, if we were to say something, well, no, we've got it's the literature that we're asking about. If we were just asking about Emerson, and Emerson all by himself, he's a person, right? Ralph Waldo Emerson, right? But we're not asking about him or making an observation about him, rather his literature. So we don't need a personal ah. I didn't forget it. It's not necessary. You guys caught on to that. You get it. It's all good, right? So anyway, clase por favor. The point I'm trying to make is just be mindful of the differences between the two to-know verbs. You guys know how to conjugate them. They're irregular in the yo form. There's the verb saber. Yo sé, tú sabes, él, ella, usted sabe, nosotros sabemos, ellos, ellas, ustedes saben. The verb conocer, again, irregular in the yo form. Yo conozco. Everywhere else regular. Tú conoces, él, ella, usted conoce, nosotros conocemos, ellos, ellas, ustedes conocen. Okay? But just be mindful of what distinguishes the two. Saber means to know how to do something, information, facts, that kind of knowledge. Versus the verb conocer, which means to know somebody, know a person. And that person has to be set apart with that personal or to be familiar with places and things. Okay? All right, muy bien. Clase, por favor, hay preguntas. We got one more thing to do, but before we do it, hay preguntas. Hay preguntas. Any questions? Okay. I've got one more thing to share with you to hopefully emphasize the difference or the distinction between these two to-know verbs. Clase, por favor, ¿cuál fue la última expresión idiomática que aprendimos en clase? What was the last idiom that we did? I think it's only been a couple of days or so. What was the last idiom that we did? Do you guys remember? Does anybody remember?
Something about cobwebs.
Something, have we done one since the cobwebs? I thought we did one since the cobwebs. Had we? Something about singing victory. Is that ringing any bells? Say something if it is. Otherwise, I'm going to think you're comatose, not responding. Did this group do something about singing?
No.
We didn't do that singing victory one? No.
I think the last one we did was the cobweb.
Okay, so the last one this group did, all right, I tried to keep all the groups on the same page with the idioms. We must have had one slip by. All right, so something about cobwebs. Do you remember exactly what it was? In Spanish, do you remember? Did you write it down? Do you remember? Does this sound familiar? Tener telarañas en los ojos. Tener telarañas en los ojos. Does that sound familiar? Give me a yes or no or something. Tener telarañas. Okay, that sounds familiar. All right. Well, I'm guessing since you didn't quite recall, you had to be reminded. I'm guessing nobody used that outside of class with anybody. I've got another idiom for today. And if you look closely, it's going to help us distinguish between the verbs saber y conocer. Look at the board. I'm going to write it down. It's unfinished. We have to finish it. But here it is. You ready? Somebody read it. We have to finish it. But somebody read what's up there. Somebody read it out loud. No saber ni papa de ... It's unfinished. Here's your literal translation. To not know even a potato about. To not know even a potato about something. Does that mean anything to anybody? What might be a good English connotative equivalent that we could use that might help put that into context a little bit better?
A box of rocks.
Oh, what's that?
Dumber than a box of rocks.
Okay, dumber than a box of rocks, but in the sense that they don't know anything, maybe, right? How about, has anybody ever heard the phrase, it doesn't know squat about whatever, or doesn't know a hill of beans about whatever, or doesn't know jack? Have you ever heard that phrase, right? Doesn't know jack about, right? Yeah. So, in the sense that, yeah, in Espanol it has nothing to do with beans or squat or jack or whatever, right? In Espanol it has to do with potatoes. To not even know a potato about, meaning you know absolutely nothing about. You know jack squat about whatever, or you don't know a hill of beans about whatever, right? Probably heard those phrases before. But like I said, it's unfinished. Lase por favor, it's unfinished. It's unfinished. If I were to ask the question, here, look. ¿De qué no sabes ni papa tú? What am I asking? ¿De qué no sabes ni papa tú? What am I asking? What am I asking? What am I asking? Don't worry about word order.
What do you know nothing about?
Yeah, what do you not know nothing about? What do you not know potatoes about? Again, look at the board, right? Of what do you not know potatoes about, right? Or what do you not know jack squat about? Or what don't you know potatoes about? How might one of you answer? How might one of you answer that question if I were to ask? ¿De qué no sabes ni papa tú? ¿De qué no sabes ni papa tú? How might one of you respond if I were to ask you? Yo know what? Got to conjugate the verb. Yo know what?
Say?
Muy bien. Yo no sé. I don't know. Keep going.
Yo no sé ni papa de español.
De español, por favor. Por favor. Did you guys hear what he said? Yo no sé ni papa de español. He doesn't know potatoes about Spanish. Well, he said it in Spanish, so he knows a little bit more than just nothing, right? Anyway, no, but I get your point, right? Yo no sé ni papa de español. We probably have to make the contraction, use del in there, but anyway. Yo no sé ni papa de español. Muy bien, muy bien. Anybody else? How might someone else respond? Callers, don't be afraid to take yourselves off mute. We haven't heard much from the callers today. If I were to ask you, yo no sé ni, or de qué no sabes ni papa tú? What don't you know potatoes about? Somebody, say something. Somebody respond. What else might you say? If it were me, I would say, yo no sé ni papa de las matemáticas. Matemáticas. Yo no sé ni papa de las matemáticas. I don't know potatoes about math, right? It's a wonder I even graduated high school and college. But anyway, yo no sé ni papa de las matemáticas. Anybody else? Who else? If I were to ask, ¿de qué no sabes ni papa tú? ¿De qué no sabes ni papa tú? Anybody? Anybody? Cliff, how about you, Cliff? Help us out. These guys are having a hard time. Cliff, ¿de qué no sabes ni papa tú? Cliff?
No sé ni papa de la química.
De la química, he said, right? De la química. Química. He doesn't know potatoes about chemistry, right? Doesn't know beans about chemistry. Doesn't know anything about chemistry, okay? Clase, por favor, since nobody feels like they want to contribute, I think we can call this a day. Anyway, clase, por favor, I hope this has helped you understand the difference between saber y conocer. Look for ways to use this particular idiom outside of class. Again, we're talking about knowing things as far as this idiom is concerned, not knowing anything about something, right? No saber ni papa de whatever it is you don't know potatoes about. Look for ways to use this outside of class. Have fun with this, right? Clase, por favor, I'm going to sign off, but before I do, ¿hay preguntas? ¿Hay preguntas? Any questions? Ok, muy bien. Clase, por favor, no se olviden, don't forget, vamos a tomar el examen de hoy a una semana, 1 week from today. El día martes 3 de noviembre, okay, November 3rd, Tuesday, November 3rd. But we'll get all of our lectures and labs finished by then, no worries. Okay, you'll even have a last lab session with Cliff to practice last concepts, answer any questions and all of that. All right, a menos que haya preguntas, unless there are any questions, I'm going to sign off. Ok, no tengo nada más. Muchísimas gracias. Muchísimas gracias. Hasta mañana. Hasta mañana. Adiós. Chao, chao. Adiós.